You're listening to the Out of the Box podcast with Timmy, Halisa, and Sinosure.
Welcome to another episode of Out of the Box. I'm Halisa and the Sinosure and Duro Timmy. Happy Democracy Day. Yes.
Happy demonstration of crazy.
Is it really demonstration of crazy?
No.
Yeah.
No, it's deeper than that.
It is.
But we wanted to but
Crazy.
it depends.
Democracy. Demonstration of
so
crazy.
that was porn. That was it. You were playing on the word. Okay.
Oh, you
I was about to
missed
say,
it.
are you about to downplay our heroes? Don't do that. Oh, no. Okay, now I get you. I get you.
Okay. Let me not say our hero. Anyway, our heroes have done their best. Well, it's still.
I think you'll be going
I'm not
full-
sure our heroes, if they wake up right now, they would extremely be proud of, where we are.
I am curious. Do with me.
Yeah.
Are we not really going full circle if we say celebration of our heroes? Because the point is they are heroes already. That's in itself a form of celebration. You could have called them their names, literally. Yeah, they have done their bit, if you ask me, and I think it now begs the question: is their was their activities, efforts enough? I'm not sure it was enough, but of course,
The
that's
activities and efforts, to me, I think they were enough. But it gets to a time where you have to hand over the baton, right? Because they actually fought a very tough fight, and they were meant to hand it off. And the people that they I don't know if they handed it off to them officially, or they hijacked it, or it just fell and they just picked it up. Those people have actually, scattered everything.
We're still not in the worst in the world in the listening table. I guess that's a small win.
Pardon me. I do not want to be a part of comparing who is worst. I want to be a part of comparing who is best. The glass is a glass cup. It's half full, half empty. You might want to decide perhaps to go the other way, which I am sure you wouldn't, because you have a track record of excellence. But the point is, I do not want to discuss the half empty. I want to discuss the half full. How are we faring relative to the best democracy out there? So I think that is how I would like my conversation to go, but I'm not so sure about others. So you have to actually tell us the course you want to chart from here.
Well. I think it's just a question of democracy. To me, it's a question of democracy or demonstration of Crase. That's just the two terms we have to actually ask ourselves, because I don't know. Yes, we have elections. We've had elections since 1999. Every 4 years, successfully, we've had elections, or some people would like to regard it as selection, and I think that with every passing election that we have, I think it becomes kind of clearer, although there are people that will tell you that, there's nowhere in the world that, doesn't have all of these issues, and, which is mostly false, and as Sinosure said, we should not be comparing the worst. We shouldn't be trying to use other people's misery as a consolation trophy. Somebody died in your house and you're like, but the neighbors actually lost you lost one child, and someone is telling you someone lost 2 or 3 children, so just be grateful that at least you still have another.
It's going pretty well for me. We just went straight right into the podcast. This is the best 5 minutes ever. Okay,
but seriously, I would still insist. I know you have your way of trying to ease into the conversation, but I still think we might need to probe further why Africans compete by their misery. Like why Africa tends to celebrate their misery. Is it some form of conditioning for us to look away from the bigger conversations? Oh, like for instance, someone is beating all of us. Oh, you now come and say, see, I am the strongest. They are beating me more than you. And you see, I am still standing strong. Have you suffered before? You have not
Is
even
it
suffered
all
at all.
Africans that do that or just Nigerians? Because I have
As
had conversations with like several other Africans, and they don't care about their own is based on their nation. They don't really care about the misery that is happening in some other African country. So we need to be very clear about what we're saying. Is it other Africans or is it just Nigerians that do that thing a lot?
I think you should not look at it as inter. You should look more at it like intra. For instance, Nigerians telling themselves like, this inflation is bad though. These days I no longer eat twice in a day. Ah, now you. You dey talk say you know they eat twice in a day. Me, now only once I don't they eat is about 2 years ago. You see, maybe only you. And then when you speak to South Africans as well, right? Among themselves, load shedding. See, our own area is worse. We are on stage
Poverty
4.
Olympic. You know
You
that's
people
what
are
they
still
call
on.
it, right? Poverty Olympic.
Champion.
I was looking for the right word.
Who suffer
So I was
pass?
going to say
Exactly.
celebration of misery. But before we go
Yeah,
into the
that's the
conversation, I
posh
think
way to say it, anyways.
yeah, I was actually going to look at it like, why don't we just find a way to at least trace the origin of the word democracy? Perhaps that may help. Yeah, are you there?
Yes. So, what
Because
did you
if
find
there,
out?
yeah, I mean, I was taught as and while I was
Okay.
in
Okay. Okay.
SS1, yeah, and they were teaching us democracy, and they said, oh, there is also the concept of African democracy, right? Is usually monarchical in a form. So whenever we say democracy, we are literally just saying the people's power to chart their course any way they want, right? Because now the word democracy in itself makes it look like it's a foreign concept. No, it is not, right? Because if you look at it within the Nigerian context, for instance, right, before Nigeria was formed in 1914, there were um, nations in Africa. We have the old Mali Empire. We have the old Oyo Empire. We have the Dahomey people. We have got a lot of them all around in Africa. But the point is, in Africa, for instance, in Oyo, there was some form of internal democracy, right? Where Alaafin of Oyo is a monarchical kind of this thing. Alaafin can actually be asked to commit suicide, right? If he is doing something or the people have lost hope or faith in him, there's a way, I think it's the Ogbonis, right? If I'm getting it right now, we now tell him like, yo, is it Ogboni or the Oyomesi? I'm not so sure of which of the two, right?
It's the
But they will,
Ogbonis.
so they will now practically just tell him, make him go open calabash. Shigba, that's literally what they call it in Yoruba. So he goes there, do that, and then kill himself so that they can install a new Alafin. And that was exactly their only kind of democracy. Those rules, because whenever we say constitution, people think constitution is a document all the time, a compiled document. No, there are written and unwritten constitution, right? Like in the UK today, you cannot find a document, a full document where all of the constitutions are binded together. No, you cannot. Be here, charter there, all of these things just scattered makes their constitution. And that's why they said they use unwritten form of constitution, right? So in the old Oyo as well, those things uh, are oral. I don't want to say oral documents. They are passed from generation to generation orally, right? Till, of course, a lot of things happen and they lost all of those culture. Some part of it are still in the Oyo Empire as we speak today. I mean, in Oyo town as we speak today. But the point is, there was democracy, and democracy is simply people's power. So whenever it's classified as a form of government ordinarily, right, you would expect it to be the government of the people, wherein they choose whosoever it is that is going to represent them, or they decide action based on a particular criteria that is set within that terrain. But popularly now, we have what we call the simple majority, right? Where they just expect majority of the people to vote in a particular line decide in a particular line, and they will call it the democratic position of that entity, territory, country, nation, and what have you. Now, the word democracy in itself is coined from two Greek words. If I'm not mistaken now,
Demo. Correct.
demo and
Yes.
kratos. Demo means commoners, or you can say people, right? The kratos means might, power, right? So, for instance, if you hear people in the EFF talking in South Africa, you hear people's power, people's power, a lot in their statement. So it literally means they understand the importance of democracy. So whenever they ask any one of our listeners who perhaps have been going around with the democracy is the government of the people, by the people, and for the people, is a definition I like a lot. Don't bother your head so much. Just see it as the people's power to decide their fate, their future, and then, of course, their
Yes.
representation at any level.
So ordinarily, and this democracy of a thing, like for example, if you say yes, the people decide, the people decide their representative, then you have to start asking yourself, are there some kind of qualities that these people have to, be assured to have for them to be able to decide that person? Even though I believe that every individual is very rational in the sense of they know what they need. I mean, I'm always like pro every individual knows what they need and they want to go for what they need, but you cannot escape the fact that every individual should not be operating from a place of, should I say, of lack, or of poverty. Like for example, there's a factors that determine a democracy. So we're talking about the kind of democracy today, even though there's a lot of controversy around if there's actual democracy being practiced today. And some of those factors are like sovereignty, equality, rule of law, civil liberty, like human rights, things like that, like independent judiciary. All of these systems have to be in place. So if you don't have those systems in place, now can you now really say that there are democracies? Or let's bring it to the context of Nigeria. There's no real independent judiciary. A lot of people, okay, I wouldn't say it as per a statement of fact, but there has been debate around how independent our judiciary is. Human rights, have those things been protected? All of these things, and then you say yes, we are practicing a democracy, but all of these factors around how about people have not really been met. So can these people reasonably choose their leaders? And when you say that, instead of people to tell you, okay, let's satisfy all of those factors so these people will be able to choose their leaders, they'll be telling you, maybe these people should not participate in the process of choosing their leaders. Instead of, it's a weird conversation, and that's why you hear people say things like, are we even ripe for democracy? Jory to me does not like hearing this thing, because it's like, no, we are ripe for democracy. But we can't escape that people will be saying that. People have said that. I can't even count how many times I've heard that. Instead of people to talk about how to satisfy those conditions to make people, more proactive in decision making for their representative, people are saying that, okay, maybe since you guys might not be so I don't know the word to use that would not really just remove people's humanity from them, but since people are not maybe good enough to participate in this whole procedure, let's choose a leader for you, please. Just
have you ever like, let me ask you guys something. Have you ever like had a conversation with Nigerians on any platform, let's say like on Clubhouse or like Twitter, and then you like your fellow Nigerians, and you tell them, if we the people decide that we don't want the price of this, no, let me not even use price, because price can be controversial, or we want this place to be named like this, that it will be done. Have you ever like been in such conversation? Have you ever made such a statement? And have you heard the reaction of your fellow Nigerian people? Many of them will be like, and I say Nigerian people, and I say with all I say with caution, because I can't just take the group of people that we see on Twitter to be like the generality of Nigerian people, right? Because there are a whole lot of people that are out there, but I'm just using the ones that are politically active and the ones that we communicate with, right? And you tell them, if we the people decide that we don't want, let's say, Nigerian Senate anymore, we only want House of Reps, or we don't want our president to drive this amount of cars, this is what we want. Have you ever like seen the reaction or listened to the reaction from people? They'll tell you, oh, it doesn't work like that. Oh, it doesn't work like that. Oh, no, it doesn't work like that. And that gives you more proof that we don't operate a democracy, or many Nigerians don't actually understand what democracy means. Because if you understand what democracy is meant to be, the will of the will of the people executed every single time, except for in cases, there's no case, the will of the people supersedes every other thing every single time. The will of majority of people. But like, it just seems like, and that's why I don't actually believe that we actually have a working democracy in the country. Yes, we have elections organized every 4 years and people hand, over power to the next person. But when you look at like some of the tenets of democracy, you look at human rights. How is human rights in Nigeria? You look at obeying the rule of law. How is that? How does that go in Nigeria, in a country like Nigeria, where court can give orders and the government in power can decide they don't want to obey this order, so they are actually trying you in courts. When the court gives an order that does not favor the government, they will refuse to obey that order. So you don't have respect for human rights in your country. You have a very low tolerance for human rights. Like you don't respect people's human rights. It's not there. That one is even off. Animals get treated better in some countries than Nigeria. The way human beings are treated in Nigeria. You look at the rule of law. That one is even out of it. Yes, we do have periodic elections. Do we have popular participation? When you look at the tenet of democracy, do we have popular participation of the people? Do we have opinion polls that are put out there? Do you have consultations? Do the people that claim to be voted in office every 4 years, do they go back and consult with their people when they want to make very, very heavy decisions that would affect the lives of millions of people and generations to come? Do they consult with the people? Do they have what do they call them again? Do they go to people? Do we even have referendums? Should we be talking about having referendums in the country where people, whether binding or non-binding, where we can, because those kind of things are what can boost democracy in our country. That's the will of the people to be executed. If I ask you now, you've probably lived maybe approaching 30 or more than 30 years of your life in Nigeria, right? Or some people have lived 40 years. They've never contributed to any decision that's been made in this country. Never.
Do you know, somebody said something that I just want to slide in, like where you said these people have not participated in any decision, right? When people vote people in, I think I probably have told you this story, but someone said it, that you vote somebody in and then the person will go to religious institutions to go and say, oh, thank to the higher being for this position. So the person going into office does not even believe that it's the people that put the person there. So the person is not exactly accountable to the people. If they have the kindness of the higher being who put them there, then they might serve the people. So even though there's maybe a lack of understanding for people that are even like electing people and people that are being elected into office, of who really put that person in that office, because maybe after the election everybody just kind of be like, okay, work is done, let's live our life. It's interesting anyways. It's very interesting. Yeah.
But
so
could it be that the politician is also going there to thank God, for
if you
people
just see how
being not so
political
smart?
I was, I'm like a politician. I
I saw that, but it's not something that we need to. But do you think that the reason why they are going there is to thank God that maybe the people that voted him the last 4 years, politicians, when they get into office, they are there are only two things that politicians are scared of. Number one, they don't want uprising of the people in any way, shape, or form. They don't want gathering. They don't even want discussions. They don't even want us to even come. Like, if Nigerians decide to be peaceful, let's come together and agree on anything. They don't want that. So talkers of like protest or like uprisings, they don't want anything like that. The second thing that they fear is losing elections. But they have to go and thank God, because after 4 years of people ruining their lives, or 8 years of people ruining their lives, those same people will come and vote them in again. And it will shock you that, there was one presidential candidate in the last election that said something. I think it was Shore. He said something. He said these politicians are just going to be sitting down and they'll just be laughing like, oh more. So after everything we've done, these people are still rooting for us. They are still or what these guys. So that could be why they go to church or wherever to thank God that yes, these people, they are still standing on our mandate. So
Yeah. Anyways,
That
today is
sounds
June 12th, and I want us to take the conversation to, you know, should I say 2019, 2018, or even take it to 1999, or maybe during the Abiola election time? Because let's just take it a little bit back to
1993.
history to be a little bit more informative, right? So June 12th, we're here June 12th. Any background, it changed from May 29th to June 12th, which is a very recent development. That's to tell you how early our democracy is, in quotes, and in quotes, because like you said, they have been practicing government for the people, by the people, and to the people. But for some reasons, there's a new type of democracy that we're trying to cling on to, that they're kind of disconnected it with a practice or a system that has been serving the people, like even before there was even colonial era or any of that. Anyways, this new form of democracy started, and the whole timing, let's just take it back a little bit and give just like a brief overview, on why we got here, because we're doing it in anniversary to to the day. So yeah, if you can indulge me.
okay. I guess the whole concept of democracy in Nigeria really um, uh, is practically almost nascent in the sense of new, right? But fortunately for the people who define democracy, they actually allowed for a low lot of um, variants, right? Constitutional, monarchical, what have you. But there is also the place of when democracy fails, they also have names. Because whenever you say demos, kratos, you're speaking to commoners, people's force, power, might, what have you. You're literally saying, okay, people decide. But what happens when you have a nation like Nigeria, for instance, where over the years people have been continually impoverished, and then now political parties sell forms for people who want to contest, some 20 million, some 50 million, some 100 million, right? And then you now have a set of people as well who are so poor that their vote is worth just 5,000 naira. So what literally is the case with Nigeria is, of course, there was an election with the overwhelming majority voting for a particular candidate, Moshood Abiola in 1993, which the IBB junta actually eventually annulled. And then people went on the street, right? It was June 12th, right? And people went on the street to ensure the annulment of that election. And then we have organizations like the National Democratic Coalition. We have the Student Union across Nigerian universities. We have a lot of CSOs, right? Came out and said, no, we are not going to take this. You have got to de-annul this and ensure that Abiola becomes the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And one interesting thing about it was that battle was fought till Babangida himself was removed from office. And then we have another head of state, a military head of state, who also died in office. And then we have some civilian intervention, although most people have said over time that, oh, those were not civilian intervention. Those were military people just changing clothes, right? To usher in another military person in 1999, who is Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, who eventually stood in the office and worked from the office, pardon me, till 2007. So literally, whenever they tell you that, oh, we are in a particular republic, maybe Fourth Republic or Fifth Republic or what have you, what they are literally telling you is the fact that we've had series of interruptions in the history of our democracy, right? And then now we are in the fourth level which was why a lot of people were actually angry with some members of the Labour Party or the obedience who were saying, oh, the military should intervene because of this election. But I think what most people do, right, is they look at, instead of looking at what the obedient are complaining about, they are looking at the means by which they are going about complaining. Right. Of course, for some of us, the means are as important as the end. But the conversation is democracy in Nigeria has been a boiling water. Right. We have actually morphed now to a place where what we are practicing currently is a variant of democracy that we call the plutocracy. Right. I have been trying to pass this message all across my network. Like
Yeah, you've been like sounding like it's almost like a broken record in a good way, anyways. But you've been saying it, plutocracy, plutocracy, and it seems like nobody wants to listen. You've been saying it for sure.
yeah, so literally, what it has become now is that you can no longer win elections in Nigeria, right? If you are not wealthy. The way you now make your wealth does not matter to people because ordinarily, the kind of spending you see within the Nigerian climb, right, is not such a spending that people would ordinarily do because they want to help their country. It's some kind of investment, kind of, that should reap that should get them more very big returns at the end of the day. You understand? So what we have is government by the wealthy, right? And then literally, I was speaking as on I think the first episode of our podcast where I was saying, okay, a certain Okada man emerged as House of Representative member under Labour Party in Kaduna State, and I heard an APC guy who was saying, "What will a poor man do in office?" Right? Which kind of law will an Okada man make? Meanwhile, the Okada man is closer to the people than Muhammadu Buhari. I don't know, maybe this makes sense to you. So if you are a wealthy, you probably are blinded by privilege. You probably are living in such a way that you cannot feel the pulse of the people. But this Okada man ordinarily should be the kind of people that are going for electoral positions. Like one of our brothers said one time, um, they employed somebody and the person came on board. I saw the tweet, right? And the guy said the guy came on board and the guy quickly fixed a bug. And they said to the guy, after he had resigned, after 3 weeks, they said, what happened? Why is he leaving something like that? And he said something like, yo, I have fixed the thing that used to give me problem as a user of your product. I don't know, maybe this makes sense to you. That literally speaks to why democracy should ordinarily be um, something that where a commoner, right, is able to exercise power, right, is able to be voted for, is able to vote for people, right, is able to make decisions, like people was saying earlier, and somebody said, "I will remove this fuel subsidy, whether you protest or not." No, that is not democracy. That is never democracy. And you know why I
But
say
isn't
it's
that
not.
isn't that democracy? Isn't it democracy when someone makes such a statement that is anti-democratic and then millions of people still will go out to vote for that person?
No, what we are shying away from, if we go that route, is to ignore the fact that about 68 million people were fed up with the Nigerian system and they did not vote. I don't know, maybe that makes sense. If 23 million out of 90 million registered voters have voted, that is not a popular vote.
But
Or
if these 60 million people just chose to sit down at home and not vote, they need to have indicated in some way that it's a protest vote, and maybe they go to the ballot, the polling unit, and they bring pure water, they stone it on the floor, or they bring eggs and they just stone it on the floor or something. Like, if you want to make
no,
a protest vote, you actually have to make a protest vote. You can't sit down at home and not, because I remember in those years,
it's
before we actually got to this, or before I actually got to this stage, sometimes our intent to get a voter's card was not even actually to vote. Our intent of getting a voter's card was just maybe, most likely to use it for transactions because, there's not, growing up and stuff. So, if
you
you're
said
going
in
to
a
make a protest vote, I don't think
Pardon
that
me.
we can continue to make the go ahead.
In your presentation earlier, you said one of the basic tenets of democracy is respect for people's basic human rights. To vote or not vote is still a form of prerogative of the voter. To come to
Yes,
that
but
place,
what I'm saying is you need to be able to give us data to work with. The only way that the data is not, I don't think there is, I understand what you're saying and I do respect it, is one way to look at it. But in order to have made that data more effective, people, there should be a way that we will have known that, okay, these are the amount of people that are actually doing a protest vote and not voting. I don't feel it's comfort. I don't feel in a democracy anyone should sit down in their house and say they are not voting. I'm not really that comfortable with making excuses for them. I mean, like, if I could wake up from my house
you know,
and stay under the sun, who are you that you cannot stand up and go and vote,
you know,
or
what, what I was saying something about privilege earlier, right? You know, the problem is we are not indeed practicing democracy as it is based from the last election. Because ordinarily, citizen participation is part of the basic tenets of democracy. So when the citizens are not participating, it really begs the question that what exactly is the government doing
But
to
is
get
there
them to.
any again, like, I'm trying to like work with like facts. Is there any data that says that this is the amount of citizens that will participate? Because there is no, except you want to say a greater amount, but even that, there's not, like, it is, as far as people go out there and vote, even in America, not everybody votes. Not everybody votes, right? I'm sure that even the people that register to, I don't know if they even register. I don't even know how they vote. Whether, as long as you're an American citizen, you can actually vote, or you have your permanent residency or whatsoever. I don't know, but I'm just saying, like, there's nothing that we can actually work with that proves that people are actually, it's actually a protest vote. And if you want to say, okay, people did not vote, okay, you did not vote, and people are not participating, is there a number that we're supposed to work with, that, okay, if, like, it will have made sense if the government had this particular amount, like, okay, they know that, okay, if we have 90 million people registered to vote, if half of the number of registered people that's people who are registered to vote don't vote, then there's a problem. But there's no data to work with. Most Nigerians just stay in their house. They don't want to participate. You bring up politics, say, no, it's not my
I
business.
am
So
not,
it's not my business.
I am,
My
I
Yeah.
am not particularly sure that that is correct, right? When you say there is no database to speak to, we have a voters register from INEC, which shows the total number of people that are registered to vote in Nigeria, right? Assuming we are adjusting for errors, wherein some people have died, where some people are out of the country. Ordinarily, let's assume 20 million people have falls within that bracket. That means we have about 70 million people to vote, right? So the bone of contention will now be, why are they not coming out to vote? We all saw the record. I mean, we all know the record of voters' brutality. Did I say voters' brutality? Pardon me. Voters' suppression, voters' harassment. You see the violence being melted on people who comes out to vote. Oh, you look somebody like somebody. Oh, you cannot vote. All of those things, they contribute to voters' apathy.
I
And
guess
whenever
the
there is,
question of voters' apathy is like this. For example, in America, we are not trying to compare, but we don't live in an island. We live, you know, in a global world, right? So, for example, in some countries like this, there's still low participation. There are some countries that, because they are maybe too comfortable, they don't need to like really be that politically active. They can still go around and live their lives, and they'll still do their thing, and things will be fine because their country is not that down economically. And then we have countries like ours that people still, there's still this large amount of political apathy, or there's this lower political participation. And then you look at it, you're like, okay, 50% of people are not participating here, 50% are still not participating here. It looks like there's lower education or lower civic education for people to know that they need to fight for their right. But then it's like, for me the question is usually like this, right? You're like, who is responsible? Normally, if you say who is responsible, you can easily just quickly say who is the government that is responsible. Then you say who is the government, and then you say the government is actually the people, which is why there's a need for like a consciousness, a consciousness. And I don't know what kind of work people need to do for us to understand.
Pardon me, if you don't mind. The people are not the one in government now. I mean, I like to do my analysis using the timeline of.
Okay,
hold on, please. I was going somewhere, and I think it will help what you are trying to say as well. When we returned to democracy in 1999, the people did not make the choice of Obasanjo. They made it look like the people did. No, the people did not. Right? And since that time, it has been one imposition after the other. And that exactly also informs the view of a lot of people who are not coming out to vote. This is not to actually justify them not coming out to vote as something valid.
I'm trying to say that people need to understand that the government is the people, but there's a disconnect there. Like people think that the government is. No, what I'm trying to say is that the government is the people, but people don't understand that the government should be them. So whether the government that is in place right now is imposed on them, or the government that is in place, they are Nigerian people. So people don't have a consciousness in them to say is their representative, like somebody that is not somebody that is their helper that should be in government. Is a represent like it's somebody like them that should be in government.
Ayodeji, will not continue victim blaming in Nigeria. Right, I would only do victim education. Right?
I agree with you. This is a part of the process.
This is where I would not agree. No.
This is part of the process. No, because if my thought is cut short here, it's like I'm projecting a thought that does not even represent me. Like I would like listen to this and I'll be like, okay, this does not even. I don't think this way. Which of course with the whole podcast and everything, you probably would know you have a clearer view of like thoughts that represent me. But I'm trying to say we are trying to process a thought or a whole understanding or why an action, or like, for example, people need to get educated, right? I'm not victim blaming here, but I'm like saying that there's a need for class consciousness, and I'm trying to suggest who is going to be a thought leader in this.
Education.
So who is going to do it?
Hold on. Sign on short. Before you go, I will not agree with you guys. You are still claiming that these people are victims. But I can tell you authoritatively that many of them are not victims. Many of them are enablers of these people. They are enablers. Since after this 2023 election, I have stopped looking at many of them. I'm not saying all. Yes, there are some people who don't have access to information. But even when you take that information to them, how do they react? There's okay.
There's levels to this. Because I think that you might be misrepresenting what your thought is. There's really levels to this. There are people that I'm not
misrepresenting. See, I'm not like you guys. You guys like to make excuses for these people.
No. There are levels to this. I feel like there are many people that don't understand. Like there's a repressive era that it's like different levels. There are many people you'll be talking to today. They have studied so much. They have education, but they do not understand.
They understand. These people know what they are doing. They understand the amount of the voting population in Nigeria now. It will be very, very I don't even know the word to use, but to come here and say, oh, they are victims. Many of these people, at least a huge percentage of them, are not victims. They are enablers of this system.
Yeah.
You see, when someone is open to knowledge, right? There's a different.
I don't know. Maybe we're being too political. Maybe I'm being too diplomatic about this.
Evidence. Do they still argue with you? And you keep on claiming that. Oh, they are the victims. They are the victims. They are the victims. You have people like I remember a friend of mine, right?
Let me
go into that story. Like, these are people that in the last 4 years, they've complained about the same things. It was you. It was you even trying to bring my consciousness, or trying to tell me, oh, let's do this, let's do that, let's do that. And when the election came, you went with the same people that have put us in this
event. When APC announced their candidate, or 20 media outlets when PDP announced their candidate. pardon me, 20 media outlets when AAC announced their candidate. Oh, 20 when SDP announced their candidate, 20 when NMPP announced their candidate, 20 when LP announced their candidate. And that kind of coverage is provided for all of these political parties ab initio. We had people who were asking us, like, apart from Kwankwaso, Obi, um, Atiku, and Tinubu, are there any contestants? They were literally asking. There was election. And we say, oh, this person is also contesting. No, I've never heard of that name before. Oh, you said Showetu is also contesting. The guy that contested in 2019, I have promised I will vote for him this time around. Oh, I didn't know since all this while. A lot of Nigerians are caught up from this reality. Why? Because they have survivor battle on one hand, and then they have the issues around exercising their democratic right on the other hand. One thing most people don't now know is that exercising your democratic choices in a normal way, or let me say in a progressive way, ordinarily as well, could help you solve that survivor battle on the other hand. Imagine a welfareist kind of state is instituted via democracy. Then it means that you are not battling for survival again. What you are battling for is wealth building. I don't know, maybe this makes sense to you. Right? But
Yes,
the
of
point is, when
course.
we not say they are accomplices, yeah, there are some people that are accomplices, but they are not in the majority. The majority of the people suffering today, right, whose vote is worth just 5K, most of them are not accomplices. They're just a victim of the whole WAP system. And immediately arise channels, TVC, and all of these channels. NTA no longer even captures people that much. People don't even watch it that much. Immediately those guys don't cover anyone in Nigeria. That person just falls off the radar. It happened with Adibayo. It happened with Showore. It happened with Dumebi Kashuko. It happened with a lot of, even the man from Kogi. Imolume. Do you know a lot of people don't even know that there's a 38 or 39-year-old Nigerian who was vying to be president? With
But
sound
whose fault
ideas
is
as
that?
well.
Youth.
Whose
People
fault
say
is that?
youth.
Whose fault is that? People are supposed to
Oh,
go out there. The point I was trying to make is that when we say, oh, a certain amount of people did not agree with the person or the election was rigged, how many people came out to state their position that I do not agree with this election? I don't agree with the result of this election. How many people actually came out? You don't even have to come out to the streets. How many of you are, there are several ways of sending a message across, sending a message across. It could even be, it could even be that Nigerians come out and they choose not to patronize one product. You send a message to the government, just one product. Okay, nobody's buying for the next 2 days. So we cannot keep making excuses for these people,
Do you
right?
think
And
people realize that they can stand up? I don't think people realize that they can
oh,
stand
oh,
up.
oh, yeah, they do. They do. They do.
perhaps,
If you think the average
I
Nigerian
don't
cannot
know.
stand up for himself, remember when they come and cut when NEPA will come and cut lights in different houses, and then you see people standing up. The
Those
average Nigerian
yeah,
knows how to protest if they need to. So
you're mistaking two things, right? And that's my view, anyways. It might not be entirely true. You are mistaking mechanical solidarity for organic solidarity. And when I say mechanical solidarity now, when NEPA wants to come and cut the lights, the people who are mostly fighting them at times, they are not on a street-wide basis. No. Most of the time, they are about people who are living in that compound. And don't forget, instances where such issues happen is where you see people living in face me, I face you, and a lot of people are living in those houses. And they don't want those men from the PACN, Eco Electricity, Ibadan, all of these guys to cut their light. That is purely mechanical solidarity. They have the same affliction and they do not want the lack of electricity, right, to worsen it. But when it gets to the point of electoral choices, democratic choices, don't forget that even the people who are not voting currently, it doesn't mean they will vote in the same direction, right? So at that point, what we need is beyond just mechanical solidarity. We need an organic solidarity. And that's where the problem is. Now, see, I will say this again, right? We can say some people are enablers, were accomplices or accomplice. They are an accomplice in the old grand scheme. But those people are in the minority, right? What about the larger majority? Some places, you'll be surprised that there's no light in those places. The radio, the network is not clear. I have been in such places in Ondo State before. The radio network is not clear. So what people literally
The
do is whenever they come to the market, because they bring their farm product to the market, whenever they come to the market, maybe every fortnight, that's when they now ask people, Talo Wale, like who emerged? That's when they now ask people like, what's going on in Akure? What's going on in Ibadan? What's going on in all of these places? People will now tell them. That's when they even have opportunity of reading newspapers at newspaper stand. It's not like they are not learned or literate. Oh. Some of them are just people who that life has dealt some blow, or some people who even decided by themselves to go back to their villages. So the point is when you now say, oh, they can go out there and know. I can tell you, if you are not listening to that ICANN lecture, where Obi, Kwangaso's deputy, Atiku's deputy, amongst others, the APC guys were not there. If you had gone to that setting, right? Oh, let me say, if you had not gone to that setting, you wouldn't have known that 39-year-old guy.
how many
You
people?
wouldn't.
How many people? What about the people who listen to it? You see, we must start
No,
to
no,
tell ourselves the truth if
it's a
we're to move
different
further in
problem
this country.
entirely. You are not still listening to me from where I want you to listen.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
people in that hall,
I understand. Yeah,
2000.
No, I
And
think there are
immediately
two different category of people, and this is not even trying to
it's not about. It's not.
really
You see,
group. No, I think
it
there
is
are
not about
people that
having.
are not like that do not have access to basic
Even
needs.
if they have
So there's that
access,
group. No,
even
listen,
if they have
that's what I'm
access,
going to do it to me. I'm trying to say that those people that have access now, then you now have to now dip into the psychology of the, I don't want to go there, of the black man.
and that's where everything
But
falls back to. It's the psychology of these people, the
because
way they think. It's not about having access.
there's the idea of there's the whole group of people that have not like been educated enough that yes there's a struggle for survival. Well, it depends on what at the end of the day what you're struggling for, because everybody's still struggling for something. So and if that thing is scarce, then you see a lot of people acting out. But
Most of them are
Even
still
there's still
struggling for potable water.
even the ones that
Access
the
to
more you educate them, the
yeah.
worse they become.
So
The more you educate them, the
exactly.
more they'll use the
But me,
English
I'm
and
looking
whatever
at
they've
it now.
learned to defend and promote and support, people who have trampled on their democratic rights. We can't be saying, oh, because they are not educated or whatever. Okay, look at you can't say, oh, we want to judge by the people who are not educated or the people who don't have. Who told you they don't have access? Who told you they don't have conversations in the marketplace? Who told you? Were people more educated in 1993 when they voted MQ Abiola? Were people more educated? And I know some people still have issues with the candidate Abiola himself, but were people more educated? Are people not supposed to be more educated now? So people is education and suffering. Everybody knows they are suffering if they are suffering. It's not, you can't educate somebody on their suffering. People know that they're not living the best of their life. They're not living in the best of conditions. They know life can be better because they see it being better for other people, but they are not ready to make the political decisions that would boost democracy and make them enjoy the tenets and the benefits of democracy. They are not ready. So I don't want to say anybody is a victim or whatsoever. All those things are those things that we tell ourselves to console and to try to console ourselves. A lot of people, Nigerians need to now sit down and start thinking, am I a victim or am I an enabler? And trust me, if Nigerians ask themselves this question, you will see that majority of Nigerians, at least 99.9% of them who are making political decisions in this country, who are leading political conversations in this country, who are voting, who are not voting in one way or the other, would discover that they are enablers of this system that we come and wail about every 4 years after voting. So that's that's my own position on this.
Welcome from your position, oh. But me, I won't still blame the victim. That's literally the thing. Because at the end of the day, people have got different psychology, right? The way they think about things, their psychic and all of these things. But the point is, a lot of people are still in that shackles of misinformation. Two, a lot of people are still in the shackles of poverty. A lot of people every day when they wake up, they are looking for what to feed on, right? And when they were computing the multidimensional poverty index recently, right, one of the things that were factored in was not just your ability to afford meal. No, they factored access to healthcare. They factored access to education. They have factored a lot of things like access to the basic necessities of life. Do it to me. You'll be surprised that about 130 million of us failed that assessment. That's why they were classified as people who are exposed to multidimensional poverty. So the conversation of saying, oh, some of us, their accomplices is valid, right? Those two can coexist. But the majority of our people as well, they are enablers because they don't know better. Is also
But how
valid.
do we
So
break away? How do we get to that place of organic solidarity? I know it's not as simple as just providing one solution, but then how do we, because for me, it's a thing of, yes, let's get educated. Let's really understand who our real enemies are. I think that we have a problem of identifying our enemies. And sometimes I go back and forth. I go, with thinking, okay, if people are angry enough, like, would they just like, little things. I think it's little things or around, okay, today there's something that we're really displeased about. Let's gather in our community or in our own little way and try to like speak out for it. I even think I see less of that now than, previously. So how do we get to that consciousness of mind to be able to identify really what the problem is without us having a head or a person up
You're
there
not
that
going
would
to-
direct a
you're-
curriculum, So
You're not going to get there anytime soon. You're not going to get there. The only way that we can get there is when we start telling ourselves the truth. And majority of us don't want to tell ourselves the truth. We're not going to get there anytime soon. The African man, yeah.
Eh? Another problem I have is we have recency bias everywhere, all over our thought. It is not just recently that people have been solidarizing with each other. No, they solidarized after the annulment of the election in 1993. So many of them were killed on the street. They solidarized for NSAS in 2020. So many of them were killed on the street.
But
And
do you know
that's
one
where
unpopular opinion or unpopular thought that I've had around this
coming.
thing? It's not even about
I'm coming.
NSAS in particular. Okay.
Hold on, please. I'm coming. Now, where we are going is to tell people that what we need is a revolution. The point is, the people who we are grappling with are not the people who are trying to play fair, right? So what we need now, forget your ideological position, forget all of those things. Know that it is a battle for survival, but not at your employer's place. Rather, against the people who are currently governing Nigeria. Your family member might be among them, but you need to understand that we need to completely revolt against them. And revolting against them does not mean you want to kill them. No, they all should vacate all of those offices, and then from there forward, we know what exactly to do. It doesn't mean that while we are organizing, we would have been clear about what to do, because when you are not clear about what to do before you revolt, that's when you see usurpers emerging after you have been voted, and they will now turn everything upside down like they did in Sudan. Right? So the point is we are clear. And that means when we are organizing as well, education must be going into it. That's why I will always say, like, what exactly do we intend to achieve when we vote is very important. If you determine the purpose of a thing clearly, the education you will give to the people will also be based on that purpose and the contingencies that you might meet along the line. At the end of the day, it is still democratic. Revolution is still democratic. Right? Especially if you get the majority of people to do that. The only set of non-democratic or undemocratic revolution that we have seen is the military coup d'etat that we've seen all over the years. There's some set of military personnel obstructing democracy, chasing people out without getting the people's popular mandate. And don't forget, whenever they are planning coup as well, they are not planning it in the full glare of everybody. They are planning it in secret amongst elite, amongst military elite, amongst other things like that. That's just the issue.
Do they
We
even
need a
call those coups revolution? I don't even see that. Like,
no.
do they?
We are seeing military revolution. I think we saw one in
Yeah,
Cuba.
the thing is, we've also seen industrial revolution, and that's why we have iPhones. I feel like it's so much in the forefront of people's heads when you call revolution for you to see those bloodshed, and I think that's one of the problems that we're having. We've also,
Let me say this, if you don't mind. Let me say this.
of course,
When we say revolution becomes bloody, it's not because of the people that we voted most of the time. It is the fact that some people, right, you are seeing a democratic revolution. I am using those words together so that people can know that it exists. You are seeing a democratic revolution and you are standing in the way of it as somebody who is supposedly elected. If the people in their majority are saying, come out from that office, we don't want to see you, you should leave. But what people now resort to is they want to use the power of the military against their people. That's where bloodshed comes in. The people now will now have to pick arms. Then it becomes an armed struggle. It is not first the people in a democracy who are petulant or who are being non-conscientious. Let me put it that way. It is the people who have been using force, dictatorial tendencies, a lot of things like that to govern the people that the people are trying to reject that usually leads to bloodshed. And peace oftentimes is not the absence of war. I always say this to people, right? There may be a seeming peace in form, and there's a lot of war going on. If they tell you that which country is peaceful in Africa now, some people will pick Nigeria. Meanwhile, it is the same Nigeria where in the northeast, the northwest, the southwest, southeast, there is one agitation or the other. There is one banditry attack. Fulani people fighting indigenous people fighting Fulani people. I'm not against side on that one. I am very clear about it. All of these things are causing a form of war, civil war going on under our noses, and then we say the country is peaceful. You get what I'm saying? So literally, if you want to have an enduring peace, there is a need for confrontation, and that confrontation is what revolution presents to us. And until we
I also think that I also think that we should note that there have been revolutions that have been like 100% peaceful. So I think I get like I think I get where the Halisa is coming from, where you're also coming from. But like there should not be anything attached when we talk about revolution. Anybody who wants to attach anything has the responsibility of explaining what they are attaching and defending what they are attaching. This matter has actually gone to like the Nigerian courts, and it has also, it has also been settled. So if the Nigerian
and even a
yeah.
speech that I saw that Abiola also gave, this they still mentioned the civil disobedience, right? So it's a thing, but I think that
Peaceful
the Nigerian
civil
people,
disobedience.
the Nigerian psyche, we are bold, we are loud. Everywhere we go, people are like, Nigerian people are loud, ha ha ha. But I think when it comes to defending ourselves, and sometimes myself too, I'm just like, do I even have the moral right to say some things? But then it's like when it comes to us defending ourselves and striving forward for something, I think people like try to like people like start a little bit, you can't, maybe because of the things that you all have mentioned in all of the conversations you've been having, which is like maybe we don't have a clear direction, we don't have a goal, we don't have a Nigerian project, we don't have an African project, we don't like have a vision towards what are we actually fighting for. Because it's when you people finish gathering and you actually push for something, and then you see that everybody kind of have their own little interest here and there, which should be fine. But when there's a greater goal, then it should be achievable, right? It's just it's just, anyways, what I was going.
People will always galvanize or organize around a project, around a leader, right? There is always a need for leadership. That was where the NSAS started failing. There was no clear-cut leadership because people couldn't trust anyone. Some people will say it's a strategy. It was not a strategy. It's a product of mistrust. There was no person to be trusted. Indeed, whenever you want to have a revolution, there should be a centerpiece. Because if you go into a revolution without a clear leadership,
Yeah.
what you will create is where opportunists will emerge. It happened after NSAS now. Maybe the opportunists show their face in this last election.
Right. See, we're gonna round up with this conversation. Maybe we'll pick it up again next time. So thank you for joining us. Happy Democracy Day. Democracy is still the best option at the end of the day, honestly. For right now. So yeah, we'll join you next time.
You're listening to the Out of the Box podcast with Timmy, Halisa, and Sinosure.